Right now, we want to get out to Plains, Georgia, where 11 Alive Zach Merchant is standing by. Zach, we know that within the next hour or so, we'll see the President's Special Air Mission 39, the plane land in Columbus and make its way toward Plains, where you are right now.
You're right, and we should note off the top here, we are expecting about a 1 hour to a 1.5 hour delay on many of the events that are scheduled here in Plains. The most important thing, if you're still trying to get here, if you're on the road watching us as you drive in, we are told by a Department of Defense spokesperson that the road closures that will effectively lock down Plains are set to begin around 3:15 this afternoon. So you still have about 30-45 minutes to get in here to Plains, and a lot of people have been doing that. The crowds have been building over the course of the day. We've been here since 4 o'clock this morning, and we've seen a lot of folks coming out, and we expect many, many more over the course of the day. This is not our first day here in Plains. We've been here for the better part of the last 2 weeks, and it's really been our honor to get to know some of the people who call this place home, who call President Carter's hometown home. And if you listened to some of the eulogies and some of the speakers at the National Cathedral at the National Funeral Service earlier this afternoon, President Carter's grandson, Jason Carter, really summed up what so many of the people here in Plains say when they talk about President Carter. And our Faith Jessie pointed to this too, and we heard from her a little while ago. Jason Carter started his eulogy talking about how his granddad, who he called Pawpaw, was at heart a regular guy. He told this great story about how President Carter would answer the door when you came and visited him in his 1970s style short shorts and the Crocs on his feet, and he looked and acted like a granddad that he very much was. But Jason Carter, as his eulogy continued, came around to the other half, the other aspect of President Carter, and said he was a regular guy, but he also very much was not. And you feel that when you're here in Plains. This is a town of fewer than 1,000 people. You look around, it looks almost identical to what it looked like 100 years ago. There's a great photo in one of the National Park Service buildings here that shows the skyline here in Plains. It looks almost the same. Just to my left here, out of camera, you see the Plains Depot, which was the headquarters of President Carter's campaign for the White House. It was chosen, there's a great plaque on the wall inside, it was chosen as the headquarters because it was one of the few buildings here that had a working restroom. This was in 1975 and 1976, not 1875 and 1876. For somebody to come from a place like this, to go to the governor's mansion, and then to the White House, and then to become a world-changing humanitarian, regular people, normal people, everyday people don't do that. They don't have the fire inside of them. They don't have the drive to pull something off like that. President Carter did, but what was remarkable is he always kept coming back to Plains too. That humility, that staying in touch with his roots here, and so many people feel that and honor that. Woman we've spoken to here throughout the week is Jill Stuckey. She's the superintendent of the Jimmy Carter National Historical Park. She's a close friend of the Carters as well, and when you talk to her, she points to that humility as part of President Carter's legacy that he shares with his partner throughout life, First Lady Rosalynn Carter.
It's hard to speak of President Carter without talking about Mrs. Carter, because they were so one. They were married for 77.5 years. They built their house here in Plains in 1961, and they didn't remodel. They didn't, they didn't need the granite countertops. They didn't need to knock out a wall. It was good enough for them. They weren't showy individuals, and they would rather spend their money on helping others.
And so many people you talk to here in Plains have deep personal connections and memories with the Carters, and even the folks who maybe are in from out of town who didn't know the Carters personally, they point to that aura, that way of living that President Carter and First Lady Rosalynn Carter showed through the way they lived, through the way they carried themselves, that humility, that selflessness, that service. And the folks here in Plains, they take that legacy seriously. Their lives and this city, this town's piece of history is so closely intertwined with the arc of the century-long life of hometown son, President Jimmy Carter. We want to end with this. Just a few days ago, we were in one of the small cafes here in Main Street, Plains, and as you can imagine, it was packed. It was a really busy day. There are lots of people visiting here, and we spoke with the woman who was running it, and she looked like you'd expect somebody who's running a small cafe on a busy day. She was working hard. But she had this look of earnest, heartfelt desire to get it done. And we talked to her and we asked her how it was going, and she just so heartfeltly said, we really want to make sure that we show the Plains that we know to the world as the world is watching us this week. And that is a sense we have felt, and I hope and I think you all can see it and feel it too as you're watching.